Today's study looks at Nairobi, the capital of Kenya and one of the largest cities in Africa. We look at the reasons why Nairobi has grown so fast and the impacts of this growth. Since this film was made, Nairobi has grown even more. In 2004, its population had increased to over 2 million. 60% of the population of Nairobi live in squatter settlements, and these occupy just 5% of the city's land area. As you watch the clip, consider the following. Why have so many people moved from the countryside to live in Nairobi? What impacts has this migration had on Nairobi? And what are some of the problems facing the migrants living in Nairobi squatter settlements?
One of the biggest challenges Africa faces is the huge migration of people to the cities as they try to escape poverty in the countryside. Africa now has the fastest urban growth rate in the world. In the second of his special series on Africa, George Alagaya has been to Kenya, where the population of its cities has grown nearly fivefold in a generation. He reports from the capital, Nairobi.
Jambo, welcome to Nairobi.
Every year, tens of thousands of foreign tourists converge on Kenya's capital. They're beguiled by the idea that they'll discover the exotic, the wide-open spaces. At the same time, another group of people arrives on the seedier side of town. They're fleeing the very countryside that holds such allure for foreigners. Kenyans from faraway places leave the poverty of the rural areas, drawn by the promise of jobs in the city.
But this is no mindless migration. In Kenya, as is the case across much of the continent, moving to the city is part of a well-planned survival strategy. What little money people scrape together here is recycled to the rural areas. Without this lifeline, much of the countryside might sink further into depression.
The new arrivals head for the slums of Kibera, Matari Valley and Korogocho. In places, the slums seem ready to engulf the city. Over half of Nairobi's population lives here, crammed into a 20th of the space the city authority allocates for the rich suburbs. Jackson Amunga came to Nairobi 7 years ago. He works as a night watchman.
Hello, habari.
Nzuri sana.
This is your family.
This is my family.
And this is your home.
11 people live in this mud-walled shack, about the size of an average British kitchen.
So Jackson, when it's night time, how do all of you manage to sleep here?
Wanachukua watoto, wanawagawa.
At night we move the table outside and put the kids on the floor, boys on one side, girls on the other. My wife and the baby sleep on one bed, and my sister-in-law and her child on the other. My brother and I go out to work.
Na sisi wawili, mimi na ndugu yangu tunaenda nje, mimi naenda kwa kazi.
As he comes home from school, Jackson's son always stops to fetch water. It costs the family 6 times more to buy water by the bucket than it would if they had access to the main supply. Those who have the least pay the most. But even the tenuous shelter of the slums is not guaranteed. Land is often sold to developers without the slum dwellers knowing. We found one group who could only watch as their shacks were demolished.
What are you doing? Who told you to come and do this? Hello?
Nobody.
Nobody told you to do this, but you're coming in and bashing down people's houses.
This is our property. We were told that this is our property.
You're told this is your property, but do you think these people are lying?
No.
They've been living here for the last 30 years. They've been living here for 30 years. They say it's their property. What do you think the people who lived here, who've been living here, should do?
I mean, we ourselves, we were given a job to do, so ask the authorities about that.
I stood with Paris Hakim amidst the debris of the home she'd lived in since 1968.
Show me where your bed was. Your bed was there. And where did the children sleep?
Children sleep here. Mimi nasikia uchungu kama mzazi kwa sababu
I feel very bitter as a mother. We came to the city to try and make a better life for our children. I don't feel that Kenya is my home anymore.
The UN agency dealing with urban problems is based in a leafy suburb across town. Its director believes the authorities' forced evictions are a glimpse of future confrontation.
In many parts of the continent and in many parts of the world where cities are not working, you have a situation not unlike a slow-motion civil war, where the poor, in order to survive, are preying on the rich, where political processes break down, where the social fabric is torn. Neighborhoods don't work.
That is the nightmare scenario, what some have called the coming anarchy. The last thing a continent that is already riven with more conflict than any other needs is further cause for division. George Alagaya, BBC News, Nairobi.
Okay, how did you do with your notes? Why have so many people moved from the countryside to live in Nairobi? People in rural parts of Kenya moved to Nairobi to escape unemployment, low wages, unprofitable farming, poor health services and poor education. Many migrate to Nairobi to find better schools and better hospitals. In the city, there are more jobs with higher wages. Some of their income is then sent back to the members of the family still living in the countryside. People who migrate to Nairobi face poor living conditions in the city's squatter settlements. These are overcrowded and have no basic services such as gas and electricity. Water is not usually supplied to homes and is expensive to buy. In these conditions, there's a high risk of disease. Land in the squatter settlements can be sold to developers, leading to the forced eviction of families. The impact of migration on Nairobi includes the increasing gap between rich and poor. This could produce a rise in crime and social disorder, which could lead to political instability.